put the house on the market because they want to buy something else, but they're afraid about buying because they hear how competitive the market is. So one strategy we've implemented, some of our people have implemented, is going after absentee owners. So some of you might be thinking, what is an absentee owner? An absentee owner is just that. It's somebody who is not living in that property. So they could be a landlord. They could be someone who bought a house in 2008, moved in 2011, and rented out that house from '08. So they're not really what you would say is a professional landlord. And why is it going after absentee owners strong right now is absentee owners can sell their house without having to worry about buying a house because they're already currently not living in that property. And you can get absentee owner lists from ReMax. You could buy it from a company like PopStream, and you can market to these lists of homeowners. And what is something that you can market to these absentee owners is there's not many houses right now that don't have equity. So some people became landlords because they wanted to buy a new house and had to keep that house because of the equity. But now everybody's having equity. So this is a great time to market to absentee owners, and it could be somebody who's out of state. A lot of people become landlords and they realize they don't like being a landlord. They don't like the property management. They're not really making that much money on the rent. So if an issue comes up with a furnace or anything they have to replace, they're losing money on the rental property. So what better time to sell a property that you're not living in and that you're not passionate about having than now? You're going to be getting record prices. So what I say is you could get this information of absentee owners from all these different sources, and you could start either a mailing campaign, you can start calling, again, follow do not call list and everything else. But if you really, really add this into your strategy, whether it's, and I'll talk a lot about video and I could get into that later, but if you go explore that absentee owner, that is such a solid way to try to create some listings, as well as anybody who expired on their house a year ago. Right? A year ago is when we start really feeling the shutdown. Expireds are less and less. But what about all the people who took their house on the market with the fear of COVID? And this is a time as agents that we need to be educating our clients about what's going on in the current market, not just real estate wise, but what safety precautions are we taking? And we're encouraging to hold harmless, people to wear masks, things like that. So it's re-engaging everybody who took their house off the market in February and March as COVID took a rise, and trying to re-engage them to be sellers again.
Thank you, Carl. Definitely something I hadn't heard before. So thank you for sharing something unique. That's great. Andrew, you want to go?
I have something. Oh, I'm sorry. Hickey, can you hear?
Yes, go for it. Yes, we can hear you.
I was going to say, piggybacking on Carl, which is a great idea. Also, I think everybody's looking for the silver bullet, and what he mentioned before, it's a lot has to do with work, right? And that's not just buying leads and doing things, but doing your own cultivating, going into expired listings, not the ones that come up, you know, the day after yesterday, but things for 6 years back, 5 years back, where now that seller that was at that time overpriced, it's now a golden nugget to explain to them, you know, how the market is really up in surgence. And also the timing, as Carl said before, the biggest fear why there's so much lack of inventory is the fact that sellers are afraid to make that jump and to have that flexibility with relocating, and terms and conditions speak as loud as pricing today in a market that we're in. It's every market has a cycle. It's funny. I look back in 1999 and 2000, we were in a very similar marketplace. I spoke to the members of the McCarr at that time on multiple offer dilemma and low inventory. So everything plays its time. But today, more than ever, you know, fast forward, we have so many more agents. So it's an ultra competitive marketplace. So the knowledge that one has, both on educating and confidence in their presentation and knowledge of the marketplace itself, although we see so many agents coming from afar, I still am a very large believer that there is a local market expert. And just to Carl's point, you know, having that ability of having your database, tapping into it, picking up the calls, having relationships, building trust is what it's all about in order to survive in longevity, not just in a short term. So just a little couple of things to add to it.
Oh, Pinky, you're muted.
Yeah, sorry. I don't know how I did that. Stefanie, go for it.
Sure. Well, one is I definitely agree with what Carl had said, as well as Andrew. When the pandemic first hit, and actually, Pinky, as you may know, previously I worked for the state. So when 2020 came, it was my first year as doing real estate full time, even though I've always had the full time production. And I said, oh, holy moly. I remember I had 2 weeks of happy, no mask, and then office shut down and closed, and I did not know what hit me. And we really utilized the absentee owners. I utilized ReMine at the time, and majority of our listings really during that huge lockdown impact was with absentee owners. So that is a very good source. Right now, Pinky, a lot of where our business comes from, aside from always continuing our relationship with our customers, as well as with their families too, when you sell somebody a house and say that they're a first-time home buyer, you really want to get into the nitty-gritty of learning more about their family, about their network, and connecting with them. So it's not always just about following that past client. It's about following their network as well, because you want them to refer people similar to them that you enjoyed working with, and you want to create this larger network. So we always hone in on just focusing on the past client itself, or focusing on the person who's in our sphere ourselves, but also going into talking a little bit more about getting to know the people around them. But the one strategy that we're utilizing a lot now is circle prospecting. And when you say circle prospecting, that falls into talking about absentee owners, that falls into every single type of aspect in terms of who you're creating this network. What we're doing presently with circle prospecting is we're generating a list from people. There's the notion that everybody sells, and buys every 7 years. So we've went back and we've done data where we took 7 years and we took back all the way from the beginning of the MLS, from whatever that is. And you'll get like thousands upon thousands of hits. And our MLS, Bright MLS, only allows you to populate 5,000 at a time. But what I do is I trim it down. I trim it down based upon what I know, buyers whom we are working with, as well as buyers that we know from other agents that I've been talking with, what they're looking for, and those are the people that we target. Now, I know we'll talk a little bit, later about, setting seller expectations and talking about this fear of these sellers have no place to go, because we're calling these people because our buyers have no place to go. So we're trying to create our own network of inventory. So with that, we're also working that on the opposing end to be able to assist the sellers that then become buyers. And there's other strategies too, Pinky, that I know we'll talk about as well as we move forward. But in terms of creating and generating those listings, it's really creating that niche. And my suggestion would be looking at houses that's past sold. If you're looking at expireds, Carl brought up a good point, going into expireds last year, because now it would be a good opportunity. Andrew brought up about also going into the bubble, seeing those houses that didn't sell. You want to make sure that you're going back. We go back a minimum of 5 years when we're looking for expireds. And additionally, what I've been doing over the past years is any for sale by owners, you see the for sale by owners, keep them as a list and continuously follow up with them, because you know what, they may not sell at this time. They may want to sell later. They may have plans that have changed. So you want to also ensure that you are, making record of for sale by owners to keep following up with them later if they don't presently sell.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. A lot of good ideas, guys. This is great.
Pinky, can I give one other strategy too?
Yes.
I don't want to overstep my boundary, but one thing that you have to be doing, and if you're not in this call now, and I know agents in my office that are on this right now are going to roll their eyes when I say this, but you need to start embracing video. We've made a massive embracement and investment into video. And right now, especially since COVID hit, community is such a huge driver. So who here on the Zoom would love just to be the #1 agent in their town and not have to go outside of their town to be able to do the level of business they want? So what we're doing is we use programs, and we were doing this on the office level during the quote unquote lockdown during quarantine. But we were interviewing a lot of agents and stuff publicly on Facebook. And we work a lot on Facebook with the algorithms, and some of the agents that are here we featured. But there's a program called StreamYard for $50 a month. All it is cost. What you should be doing is, if you really want to be that person, the go-to resource in that community, is you need to be creating content about that community. And it's not always real estate driven, right? People will know it's a sales pitch. You should be interviewing the local restaurant owner. You should be interviewing the attorney that could help with tax appeals. You should be doing all these type of interviews, and you should be doing them, guys, you're going to create live on your Facebook. Because what happens is when you go live on Facebook, your friends all get an alert and they're going to see it and people are going to start engaging it. You want to become the go-to resource in your town, not just the real, and in turn, you are also the realtor. So we've had agents that have pushed me on the video. I don't know, Carl, I don't like how I look and sound. Well, you know what? That's how you look and sound in real life. So get over it. You just got to embrace it. You got to start doing it. And we've had agents who have generated leads after doing their first or second video, right? So it's doing it. Don't worry about, like I said, don't worry about how you sound. You don't have to have professional. I'm sitting here in a studio that we built in our office, but you know what? When I started doing video, it was me with my cell phone sounding nasally like this. So you don't need all the fancy equipment, but what you have to do is you have to really embrace it, and you have to put that content out there to be the go-to person, because you could always be out there trying to get people to work with you, or you could really focus on building a magnet where people are attracted to work with you. And when I tell you this is when you build a magnet and people are seeking you out, it is so much easier than trying to sell yourself against other realtors, because you've already built trust and credibility. You know, I've talked with agents who have been following me for years, watching my videos and everything like that. And if you want to see some of the videos you do, just feel free to connect with me on Facebook or Instagram at Carl SanFilippo. But I'll see them like, Carl, I feel like I've known you for years. I'm like, well, we're just meeting now, so we haven't. But they're like, yeah, but I've been watching your video, I've been watching your content, and I wanted to reach out. So being consistent with it and embracing video can generate you a ton of business for not much more money than this cup of Starbucks coffee.
She's got props and all, guys. Look at that.
Well, I wanted to add in from what you're saying with respect to the videos. And, Carl, you have amazing ideas, and, from everything that you provide to agents and what you're saying on the webinar too. But, to summarize as well, I wanted to chime in. When we're working as a realtor, and when we, let's say, are new in the industry, or we're trying to find our footing, we're trying to find our niche, and we're trying to find our brand. What I mean by that, Carl, is that you have an absentee owner idea. Andrew may have an expired idea. I may have a circle prospecting idea, like in your farm, doing farming. And we all have different ideas. And let me tell you, there is not enough hours in the day to be working
to do everything
on all of that. So
right.
When you're talking about video, Carl, and that becomes very precedent when you are building your brand. What information are you going to put out to people? Where are you going to target? What do you feel comfortable in? So I remember when I would do these webinars and I would learn from people, and I would take all these notes, and I'm like, I'm going to do an action plan for everything. And I was so excited. And man, did I do everything. And let me tell you, I gained 10 pounds. I stressed myself out.
Yeah.
It was like I was unhealthy. I think my husband, I think he was about to leave me. I don't know. He was like, I never see you come home and you leave the house at 4 o'clock in the morning, come out at 11 o'clock at night. He's like, who's your new lover? I'm like, well, I think I talked to like over 500 people today. So 500 new lovers today. So, it becomes very overwhelming. And, even for the people in my team, and I take apart and I say, okay, Brad, he's one of my best buyer's agents. And I say, what do you want to do? Like, what is your niche? And same with John. John is, he's a first-year agent. And let me tell you, in terms of agents whom I've met, he is one of, actually, for a first year to be as ethical as he is and as smart as he is, it's impeccable. But I always say, who are you? Because you are not me. They're not going to follow my business plan. And Carl, you probably have the same thing with your team. You're going to have different agents who want to go different routes, and that's okay. You need to pick one thing become that brand and model that.
No, it's not, and I agree, because I always say if you go in 17 different directions, you're only going to go in one. You go down, right? We say small hinges swing big doors. It's usually the smallest changes you can make in your business or implement one little thing, but you want to master one or two lead generation tactics, not be okay at 17.
Yeah.
So I agree with you 110%.
Yeah, great comments, guys. This is really
I think
very
the other thing, Pinky, again, the footnote and go back into is that all good points, also getting involved, right? Community is a big part of it. Getting involved in, whether you're involved in sports events for your kids or whether you're involved in different types of township events, you know, having that support of the community is a big thing. We're celebrating our 30th year anniversary, the Eyes of March this year. And since we opened our doors, it's always been, you know, on the support of the community. You know, we give back, and it's that go give kind of a situation. So, you know, that intensity and that drive for the community is a big part of becoming that local expert, not just realtor of choice, but just real committed, you know, to the people involved in the community. And believe me, in proven over the years, you know, a township can make a big ripple amongst the entire, you know, county at that point for having that local knowledge. So whatever path someone wants to choose, you know, they're all great, you know, opportunities. But like you said, you can't do 16, 17 different burnout very quickly. There's no question.
Yeah, absolutely. Really, really solid points. Thank you all. That's really helpful. And I agree. And Carl, I should have gone Facebook Live, hindsight. Thank you for the reminder, a little bit late. And I will agree with you guys. We had this conversation as we were prepping before, is be you, I think, is the big message, right? Like everyone's got great ideas. You have to be you, do what works for you. You can't pretend to be somebody else. It's just, you know, just to harp on that or wrap that up. Getting back to listings, right? Specifically. So you guys, as you get multiple offers, here's a question about this, and maybe we'll wrap a couple of questions into one so we can have you tackle a couple of topics at once. So as a listing agent, or as you're advising your listing agents, a couple of things. What do you look for in the offers, right? As it is when you get multiple bids, what is it that you're looking for? And what's a great way in which you're efficiently managing review of those and presenting them to your seller? Because obviously it can be very time consuming if you've got 20 offers to put it all together. So what's your strategy on how you, again, look at it, what you're looking for in the offers, key things that either make a deal or that you just immediately rule out because of something or another? And then how are you organizing and presenting to your sellers? Andrew, you want to go first?
Sure. So it's not just price, right? It's terms and conditions that are equal to an offering at that point. And as you said, you know, when you're having, whether it's 2 offers or 11 offers, the best thing to do is just to make an outline. Look at the actual price, look at the actual down payment structure, check the mortgage amount, also the pre-approvals, making sure that the agents have all the proper documents, I would tell you, is the best thing. The flexibility of the buyer today is so critical, especially with this environment with low inventory for the seller if they don't have a property to go to. And also, you know, before contacting this seller, I always take time when you're looking at the offers and you pick 1 or 2 or 3 that seem to be the best fit. Reach out to the loan officer, and Picky, you'll know I do that all the time with you, and I'll do it for everyone. And I tell my agents the same thing. Get a little bit more of a background as far as the qualification of that pre-approval. Did the loan officer actually take time to get the income verification in writing, the asset verification, knowing their front end, back end, providing them with the taxes that they're looking to purchase on the listing, if there's association. So you do as much of your background check in that end, so when you go back to the seller, you're not overwhelming them with all these offers. They're hiring you for your expertise and advice that you can provide. So when you do that, there's a respect that they're going to come back to you with as well. At the end, they make their own decision, but you give them as much information to make, hopefully the right decision to move forward at that point.
Okay, great. Thank you, Andrew. Carl?
Well, I think what Andrew was saying is spot on. And I think this is when your reputation and how you work with other agents really helps too. Because if, as a listing agent, if everything's equal and the seller is like, well, which offer do you think out of these two? Because all the terms are pretty much the same. And you've worked with one agent who gets it done. And because, it takes a team to get to closing sometimes, you're going to want to go with the agent, if everything else is equal, the agent that you have good rapport with and will get it done. So a lot of times your reputation, and I think what Andrew said too, is nothing more frustrating when you're a listing agent and you have to chase the buyer agent for documents. It's the most frustrating thing ever. So when you're sending an offer, having all the right documents, all the signatures, all the disclosures, your job, when you're the buyer's agent, the easier you can make it for the listing agent, the better your offer is going to look. And again, I'm not saying they're going to take an offer $40,000 less or anything like that, but if everything's equal, it's usually those small little things that can help you get the offer accepted. So I think as the listing agent too, is setting the expectations of the process with the seller up front. Say, hey, this market, we're going to get a lot of multiple offers. What we'll do is we're going to put together some type of spreadsheet. We're going to present the offers, because it's also good in this market is to have something that your client is acknowledging they received and rejected the offer. Because if you do that with your seller up front, it's going to save you time with the agent who's questioning whether that was done. So doing that, getting it rejected, having it in your file, because what happens too is in markets like this, we see a lot more people think the offer wasn't complained, go to the real estate commission. So if the real estate commission pops in and says, we want to know this offer is submitted, you have proof right there in your file. So doing it up front saves you a lot of time on the back end. In this market, you have to have everything documented and in writing to protect yourself and the brokerage. So, but I think what Andrew said about everything was spot on.
Okay, great. Thank you. Stefanie, anything different to add?
Well, I of course agree with all of them. One thing I really love that Carl said is about the relationships, because when you have a relationship with somebody, you feel more comfortable working with that agent because you have that trust. But also I wanted to add to a couple of things when we're looking at offers. I wanted to make a few different suggestions. And these suggestions are going to come in from issues that I've had working in certain transactions, as well as other issues that other agents have had. There we go. So number one, of course, everybody is so quick to want to, put in a higher offer. And that a lot of times I feel that we're sellers, or we're advising that we're going to obtain multiple offers and we're going to come in this situation. So with that, they think we're going to have price driven. Also, with that being said too, it's the expectation that, well, my neighbor had their house listed and they got $50,000 more, then I'm going to get $50,000 more. When I look at offers, I don't look at the price. I look at the price, of course, but there's many different factors that I look at a little bit more. We're talking about waivers. Number one is people are waiving appraisals. Number two, people are waiving home inspections. I'm going to give my personal opinion on this. My personal opinion is that with a home inspection, I do not like seeing home inspections waived. The reason why I don't is because of liability purposes. We had a buyer who was purchasing on my listing, and he was adamant that he did not want to have a home inspection. He knew everything. I had him sign one of our waivers in the office. We added it in attorney review. Everybody advised him to get a home inspection, and he did not. 2 days after he moved into the house, the basement flooded, the hot water heater failed, and 3 weeks later, the furnace went. And yeah, so these are all things we're talking about the home inspection part of it. That's why I don't like seeing things being waived. But, when we talk a little bit more as well, like getting into the seller's expectations, I kind of want to go into more about bulletproofing the transaction. But with that is I look at caps. So for instance, if I have a buyer who I know I will never tell them to waive a home inspection, and I say, well, let's do this. Let's have the home inspection for informational purposes only. With that being said, now, of course, as some of you may know, with home inspection for informational purposes only, it's information that you walk through a house, you see, okay, the window is broken, this is that, you know, the sink's broken or the countertop's broken and the HVAC is old, I'm okay with that. But there could be underlying factors that occur in a home inspection that we cannot visibly see. And during that time, even though a buyer is having a home inspection for informational purposes only, we still make a request. So what I have done is I put caps and I say, we'll have a home inspection for informational purposes only. In the event that a potential repair would exceed $10,000, you know, things that would be for mechanical, electrical, or structural, that the buyer then has the opportunity to, you know, renegotiate the terms or have the seller fix it or what have you. I thought that that was a very good buffer. One, it's protecting everybody in the transaction. Two, I've actually gotten pretty good feedback from the attorneys who I work with. They thought that that was a much better way to, you know, present that. And then also with the appraisal is people are waiving appraisals. And I have one that was on the market. We had 23 offers and I knew that I priced this property straight to the data. I had exact comparable properties that were the exact same model, exact same unit, and we priced at that. And I knew I had a couple of outliers that were a little bit higher, but I know where the number is. Of course, we had an offer that was way exceeding. And I was like, you know what, I'm not going to, my seller says, we want to accept it. We want to accept it. And I said, no, we're not accepting it. And I went back and I said to this, you know, potential buyer's agent, and I said, can you confirm? And I vetted the lender. I reached out to the lender and I said, can you confirm that this person has, we'll give an example, $25,000 extra to put for the appraisal? And I asked that to the buyers. Well, the buyers told me, yes, they did. The lender told me they did not. However, the lender said, I will discuss with the buyer and their agent. There is an amount that she could work with. We're going to have to come in and cap it. So the offer came back. They capped the appraisal, let's say a number of $10,000, that they can bring the difference up to $10,000 for the appraisal. So that's another thing, because when you're going through these multiple offers, your sellers, and again, my sellers always look at me and they say, well, what's the secure offer, Stefanie? What's going to be that I love the word, that guaranteed offer to get us to closing. And I always say, well, there's really nothing guaranteed. We can't guarantee you anything until we go to the closing table. However, there are ways that we can protect ourselves, and not only ourselves, but also the buyers, and we can, you know, make this transaction work. And like I said, my thing is going into capping. Another thing that I wanted to bring up to Pinky is with my offers, I would love to see a backup lender. And unfortunately, you know, and I'm going to be very candid. I know working with you, Pinky, and I know your reputation. If I see an offer with your pre-approval, I know we have a relationship, but I do know your reputation. Every single time that we have done any transaction, even regardless of if the buyer maybe went with another lender for some other reason, or maybe it was a relocation for some other, whatever reason it would be. But I know the minute that you vetted all their information, that they are a secure buyer. Now, you have that reputation. Actually, I think, Carl, you have Jane, I think, is on your team. I believe it's Jane, but there was one East Brunswick agent that I was presenting an offer to, and they said, oh, you're going with Pinky. You have a much better, like, we're good. We want to just work with you because you're working with Pinky. And because of the relationships that you create with the one that we did in Mount Laurel for Sophia, that agent was impressed by you. However, that is you, Pinky, and I cannot replicate you from 20 million other lenders that are there. So again, I do want to see that backup lender, because some things fall through. Some people can be overworked with underwriting. Could be appraisal issues with, you know, your appraiser might not, you know, say it's worth this amount, and another appraiser may say it's worth another amount. But it's good just to have that. And also it's good for your buyers too, just to have an understanding of terms and opportunities. Additionally, lastly, what I look for too in the offer is somebody who is going, and this is going to be like, I'm just going to say in terms of relationship, somebody who calls me. When I get offers and you just email me an offer through Dotloop, I'm like, I don't even know who you are. I don't even know what the hell this is. What is this? It makes no sense to me. Oh, like, I know how to read a contract, But at the same point in time, I want you to call me and I want you to convince me why I'm going with this offer. And Pinky, there have been many of times who agents, they were not the highest offer, but they've called me or I've called them and we've had this interaction. Yeah, and even though we were not the highest offer, we got it. So always having that conversation. And for the people who call me, I go above and beyond to help them. You know, when they ask me, I have a lot of agents today asking me, well, what do I need to do to make the deal work? And as you know, we can't disclose the other offers, but I tell them, well, just bring me what your buyer is financially comfortable with. And I want to go over a few things about the property. You tell me what your client's okay with, and here's other innovative strategies that I've utilized. Do you think we can incorporate any of that with your buyer? And that's how I've been handling in terms of what we're looking for the offers. And the organization of offers is awful. There is no perfect way to organize how you're getting offers because it's somebody's revising their offer via text, somebody's calling, somebody's sending you 3 million emails. It's so difficult. But what I have adapted is, one, setting up a rule on your email where so if I have a property, 15 Landfair Lane in Ewing, New Jersey. It is a 3-bedroom ranch offered at a great price, and you can be my neighbor. So if anybody's looking for a ranch in Ewing and would love their clients to be my neighbor, that's a perfect opportunity. But I have a folder, it's 15 Landfair, and then I'm funneling the emails through there. Additionally is going back to the old school. I print everything. Sorry, trees, I'm sorry, but I print everything. And I have a file. And why I like that is because I like to write and highlight. And then by doing that, I create a summary of all the offers. Then what I do is before I meet the seller, is I call each one and I say, can I go over your offer terms to confirm that this is correct? Because I want the agents knowing that I'm presenting their offer the way that they would, that on behalf of their buyer, that they want it to be presented to the seller. And I give them that opportunity. Because again, that's the same opportunity I would want my buyers to have, is having a shoe in and saying, realistically how I want their offer presented, not just the terms and the numbers, having that conversation. So that's another way that I organize it. We even go through showing time and follow up with the agents. I have my VA do that, follow up with all the agents. I just want to confirm, did you submit an offer? And we go down the line just to make sure we match.
Awesome. Wow, Stefanie, a lot of great nuggets. Thank you. Yeah. And what I love about what all three of you shared was the actionability of it, right? You guys, there's things you can do immediately from what everybody has shared when you get your listings and when you put in offers. So some really, really good shares. Thank you. And I will add to, and thank you, by the way, for the kind words about, when we use an offer for me, I appreciate that. And what I will share with you guys on that note is one of the things, and Andrew, you know this, right? I call on your listing. If you happen to be the listing agent, I call proactively. So I know you all, like some agents, like Andrew always calls with, it's almost a race between Andrew and I to see who calls each other first on his listings. If I'm going to call him first or he's going to call me first, I feel like so. But we usually, we call every listing agent when our buyer puts an offer in. We always have our agents tell us, copy us on the offer, and then we will call the listing agent to support it. And Carl, in the spirit of what you said about the relationships, what I started doing as well, and especially with the newer agents that I work with, is I do recognize how important the relationship is. So when I make that phone call, not only am I talking about how the buyer is so well qualified in the work we've done with them and how we did a pre-purchase consultation, we went through the meeting, we go through that. But then I also say, hey, if you have not worked with Tania yet, you should know that she is a solid agent. She's been in the business. And so I give them a little sell, if you will, on the agent as well, to help them realize that there's a strong buyer team here supporting this particular buyer. And if I know that agent works with a particular attorney, then I'll also mention that and say, so we have a really strong team here supporting this buyer. So we're going to be in good hands and we're all going to work together as a team. So I also sell that part of it when I make the phone calls to the buyer's agent, to the listing agent.
And Pinky, your team does a terrific job of following up with the listing agent during the transaction. So I just want to acknowledge that. I mean, you guys are on top of it.
Thank you. Yeah. Andrew, you were going to add something different?
I was going to say the same thing.
Okay.
So many times, as far as the loan officer or your end, you're communicating more with the buyer's agent or the buyer. or not even with anyone, some of these, lenders. But your office, as far as the listing side, always communicates where we are, ordering the appraisal, again, underwriting, conditional commitments, certain things that are there. So very informative, and that's all part of service, right?
Right.
Similar to what we provide as brokers and agents.
Yeah.
It's all a service relationship business.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you all for that. So expectations, I think we touched on it. So I'm going to kind of move on to a little bit in the interest of time. Obviously such great dialogue. So it's hard to get it all in.
I have one thing to compliment, as far as just to go back to where Stefanie was saying, as far as not making any real, guarantee. I always like to say to sellers, it's like a game of baseball. And Carl could relate because he's got a Yankee cap on, right? Our industry, we have 3 contingencies in most contracts, like a baseball diamond. The first, once we get a hit, we get an offer and acceptance, we go to attorney review. That's your first base. Sometimes you could get tagged out by remorse, etc. Come back to the plate. But if we get through attorney review, we go to second base. And that's a home inspection, right? We could see all these big talk, they're going to waive their inspections, but you get to know the horse when you get them on the track, I like to say. So when they only want from your shin down, I tell my seller, and not your neck down, then you're okay and you're blessed. You move through that. And the third and final base is that of a true mortgage commitment. As much as we do as much screening and everything else until we get that commitment. And even then, there's still conditions on that. So the guarantee is once you come home, I'll thank you, congratulate you. So again, set expectations up front so it's a less eventfulness for you in the end as far as the agent. So I just wanted to kind of set that up.
No, that's great, Andrew. That was actually one of my comments and questions, which you finished to address, was how important it is to set expectations, right? Because it's when we set those expectations, if your client does not know that this is all coming, it can hit them at a left field, to go with your baseball analogy, right? And that's going to be really tough when you get hit with that ball at a left field. So all those expectation setting is super, super critical to all this. So on that same note, right, we talked about educating the sellers. Now, if we flip the script a little bit and now you're representing the buyers, what are we doing to educate the buyers? So any suggestions that you guys have on the key things that you want to make sure that every buyer has as they're being educated here? And guys, I know I'm starting to, we are recording this, by the way, so you will be able to go back and listen to this over because some really important content in here. So buyer expectations. Carl, go for it.
I mean, I think one of the biggest things with buyer expectations right now, and we talked a little bit about this call, is buyer fatigue. Buyer and agent fatigue. So, all the agents work with a lot of buyers right now. And, I give you guys a lot of credit, and I have a lot of empathy because I know what it's like out in that market right now. And buyers are getting tired. I speak with agents who say, hey, every offer I get 20, 30,000 I'm putting in, I'm getting beat out on, and my buyers are getting frustrated. I'm getting frustrated. It's taking a lot of time. So one good thing to remind the buyers too is there's probably about 30 other people who are in the same position you are in that house, right? With something with a lot of offers. You kind of have to educate the buyer up front about the market and what's happening right now. And as an agent, if your buyer is not ready for this type of market, you have to accept that and be okay with it and move on. Because if you have a buyer who's saying, I don't want to get into multiple offers, I don't want this, I don't want that, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, it's okay, but honestly, right now, this might not be the right market for you, or I don't want to set an unrealistic expectation and have you frustrated during the process. And when you're working with abundance and you have a big pool of buyers, it's a lot easier to do that than if you have one buyer that you're working with. So always focusing on your lead prospecting and having as many clients in your pipeline is crucial. So you don't have to work with every single buyer, because you don't want to work with a buyer who doesn't have the right expectations and is not prepared for this market. Because it doesn't look like this market is slowing down anytime soon. So you really have to, and it just seems to be getting busier. February 15th seems a lot, March 15th is going to be a lot different than it was December 15th. It's just getting busier. So just setting that expectations with your buyer, and you got to be okay to fire a buyer. And as a listing agent, you have to be okay to fire a seller once in a while. Your your sanity in this business is more than any one deal is going to be. So those are really the expectations I would set with your buyer up front, and really screen the buyer to make sure you're the right fit for that buyer.
That's great. Thank you. I like that, fire a buyer.
I think the other thing is, be honest with the buyers. Not everyone is able to buy in this type of an environment. The
Right.
buyer goes back to the empathy, right? You feel bad for the buyer that has, an FHA or asking for seller concession, or has the coinciding sales, or has a house sale. They're not able to buy at this point unless they go to markets far from our area where maybe the prices are lower and there is a little bit more inventory hanging on the tree. But in our environment right now, and I agree with Carl, the next few months are going to be very competitive. Hopefully, with the rollout of vaccines and more people being a little more comfortable, especially sellers, we'll start to see some more product, but it's still going to be an ultra competitive marketplace. And for those that aren't prepared right now, saving down payment, cleaning up their credit a little bit more, having more for closing costs. These are just things that you need to, again, explain to them in a right way, not in a wrong way, that in long term, they'll be a client in the future. So long-term relationship is what it's all about.
Right.
And I think and Andrew, piggyback, I think some of the reason we have low inventory is also because of the low interest rates, more buyer power. But I think a lot of people who thought about maybe selling refinanced and said, let me ride it out for the next couple of years, see what happens when everything. And so I think a lot of people who were on the fence of either selling might have opted to refi and stay a little bit longer, which is adding to the shortage of inventory.
Yeah, or just making home improvements, right? We're seeing that today. Just look at the cost of material today, and it's, I work with builders as well. I mean, lumber's gone up
through the roof,
close to probably 70% in a year and a half. It's out of control. And to the grace of God, the market's gone high enough for them to catch up and still be able to build. But it gets to a point it's not going to be sustainable, especially if you see the rates tick. So many people are so driven on interest rates right now. That's the glue that's holding everything together at this point. If that rate goes up, which it's not for a while, but the next page in our, again, history is going to be based upon the change. And then we're going to be complaining that we have too many listings on the market and, the buyers aren't making their decisions up. So every market brings a challenge. We are in a challenging market. And what that means is following. There's only going to be one winner on each one of these type of multiple bids. So be fair to each other in our industry, right? Just because Carl's office may make an in-house deal doesn't mean that was done manipulating, or our office. It means that this is what's happening right now. So, be nice, be fair, and things will change. But right now, it's an ultra competitive marketplace, and just hold on. That's what it's about right now. And it is a tough market.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Carl, you mentioned refinance. I will add one of the things that we do right now that people are staying in homes longer because they're refinancing. So what we're doing is we're looking at our refinance clients that come in. And my business is purchase driven. It's always been purchase driven, but obviously, we have thankfully a recurring client. So they come back to us for refinances. And when they do, one of my questions to them is, how long do you plan to stay in the home? We don't just say, yes, because you're here, we're going to refinance you. One of the questions is, how long do you plan to stay in this home? And then I just had a client I spoke to this very week where he said, well, this was meant to be a starter home. And I'm like, well, let's talk about the equity you've built up, and let's take a look and see if maybe move up is an option. So we are working to try and help create more listings for you guys as well by having move up conversations with our refinance buyers. So if you have a lender that you work with, and it's not us, if you want to have that conversation with your lender to talk to them about talking about that with your clients, that would be another opportunity. So Stefanie, did you have anything to add to that comment before we move on to the next one? I know there was a lot covered.
No, there was a lot of great things covered. One thing, Pinky, is when we're coming in terms of expectations for any client, seller, buyer, renter, investor, whomever, is analyzing their situation and coming up with a game plan that's going to best help them. So when we're talking about the sellers, it's what are their expectations? Where do they need to go next? Normally, if I'm in a listing appointment, I don't really get into talking about selling their house. I want to first talk about where are their plans and where do they need to go, and then focus on setting up a roadmap for how we're going to get there. Also, and same with buyers, and setting those expectations with here's your situation, here is your roadmap, and this is how we're going to get there. One thing I actually wanted to touch base on too is, Pete mentioned in the chat about, talking about offers, contingent offers. I work with, actually, I want to say mostly all of my transactions except a few are, and I think we have like 21 under contract, so about like a few are non-contingent. Majority of ours are contingent. And I'm not fearful of those contingent offers, and I don't tell my clients, please do not accept contingent offers. I have a lot of agents who call me before they show the listing and they say, are you going to accept contingent offers? And I always say, I'm not objecting to them, because sometimes it's not about the situation, it's about the buyer. When you're selling a house, and I know now it's not really, or you're buying a house, and I know it's cliche that everything happens for a reason, even though we're in a market where we have a ton of buyers looking for that same house. It's all about the one that's going to make that match. So regardless of where they come from or what their background is, what their offer, as a professional, as being buyer's agent and being listing agents and explaining and having more information than just here's an offer for $300,000 with a contingency and we don't know anything about the contingency, talking a little bit more. One thing I want to add, and I always say this and I'm just going off of, what Pete had mentioned too, when you're working with contingent offers, I always tell the other agents that we are married together. We're now married. We're in this relationship now because we need to know everything that's going on. We need to know dates for everything. And I follow up on all of them. And, I asked our buyer's agent, hey, is it okay if I follow up with your buyer's agent? Or are you going to handle that? Great. If you're going to handle that, you need to let me know every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, what's going on. You need to send me an email. If you don't, I'm going to text you. I'm going to follow up with you. Or some agents are like, well, you just follow up with them. You can do that. If they don't want to, we all know how that goes. But again, I try to preface that we're all married and we all need to be working together and knowing what's going on, because that's how we're going to benefit. I recently had a transaction that was from November until January, and it was a line of my clients, past clients, who bought and sold each other's house. Except the one that we found, one that was for sale by owner that was by an investor that blew up. But they were all contingent, and we were all literally buying and selling other people's houses, all my past clients. So if one thing went wrong, everybody was going to look at me. So that was a very difficult to keep everything together. But at the end, it was very smooth. Everybody was happy. So I just wanted to add that in.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Good stuff. So you guys talked about, kind of touched upon something that I get questions on a lot too, is how do we help those buyers who are those first-time home buyers that barely scraped off enough money? They're so excited. They've been working hard. They're coming. They're like, I finally got enough money. I can buy my house now. I maybe need an FHA loan. My credit score is a little bit low. They're so excited because they think they can finally buy a house. And then they find out, well, you have an FHA offer. You're only putting 3% down. No one really wants your offer is what they hear a lot, right? So what advice do you have if you've got a client that shows up like that, ready to help, excited to buy their first home? Are they just out of luck right now, or is there a way to help them in this market? Andrew?
It's a tough situation right now, for that buyer. That buyer may need to look at properties that no one else has picked right away, right? So it's something that's been sitting on the market for a long time, or it's come back to the market where you may have a little bit more of an opportunity. But something that comes out right away off the gate and has 10 offers, 11 offers, 23 offers, it's a challenge.
Yeah, that's what I advise my buyers too. When they come in, I said, look, you can't look at stuff that's hot off the press. You got to find things that have been sitting there on the market. But what else? Anything else? Thank you, Andrew. That's what I've been telling them too. But any other tips, Carl, Stefanie?
Well, so one actually, Pinky, this is when we're going into those types of buyers, and I agree with Andrew, it's very difficult, and you know, it's upsetting, and actually it's heartbreaking for me, because they're very excited to buy a house, and we know that they're a little bit more limited. You know, for instance, I have a client who is a VA, who needs $10,000 in closing cost concessions and is looking for a 55 and over. And with that being said, well, one, we have limits with that, as you know, but then the next option is, so we already are limited on where we can go with the VA. Then next, as you know, a lot of the 55 and over purchasers are downsizers from their houses that they're selling, and they have cash, or they're tapping into other assets. So now we're fighting in a market with cash buyers whom are still going over the asking price and whom don't need concessions. And you know, what I've done, and I actually wanted to chime in for what I've done specifically, you know, for this client. And I will tell you the truth is that they ended up extending their lease for the time being. But again, with that being said, I want to at least go over the efforts. Well, the efforts were, of course, when we're talking about that offer presentation and how that's looking, that's going to be your number one strategy to utilize. But again, it's not always finding those on-market opportunities. It's going on off-market opportunities, looking at for sale by owners, looking at expireds, circle prospecting a neighborhood, sending letters, you know, doing that extra additional work to find an off-market opportunity is what I found to be one of the best strategies to get these types of buyers into something, because the on market it's just too competitive. Even so, like I said, when I present offers and I talk to my sellers about that, I tell them we can't loan discriminate. If somebody has an FHA, conventional, or VA, we can't discriminate against the loan. But what we're looking for is we're looking at terms, because I hear a lot of times different agents say, oh, we don't accept VA, we don't accept FHA. I'm like, what's the reason why you don't? Oh, we get better deals with conventional. At the end of the day, the seller still gets the same amount of money in their pocket. If the buyer was going cash, conventional, VA, or FHA, they get the same amount of money at the end of the day. And it comes into, and also in terms of education to your buyers and ways to really bulletproof that transaction. So if you have a first-time home buyer who does not want to waive a home inspection, you know, guiding them through the house, saying, okay, based upon what I can visibly see, let's talk about these items. What are your expectations for these items? I don't want to replace a furnace. Okay, great. Maybe this is not the house for you. Maybe we can talk about a home warranty, talking about other different strategies that if something goes awry for a home inspector, setting that expectations of other resources aside from seller curing items or from that particular house, what other strategies do we have? You know, people who are not going to overpay. Listen, you know what, Pinky, I'm going to tell you what, I don't want to overpay. I don't want to overpay in this market. I know what I tell our buyers and our sellers, but I get it. And I'll never sell my house too. So when I cold call people and they say, I'm never selling my house, I'm there with everybody too. But with that being said, you know, going into talking about offer price is lowering their budget a little bit. What I mean by that is if they're approved for $200,000, don't look at houses that are $220,000. You want to look at houses that are maybe $175,000. When we're talking to, and I wanted to chime in about when we're talking about expectations for our clients, meeting with our sellers, we talk about pricing strategies. So when I mentioned about that roadmap that I prepare for my sellers and my buyers alike, with the sellers, we prepare different pricing strategy. And what I do, Pinky, is, and again, I'm not sure, and I would really love to hear what Carl has to say about this too, is we have a couple different pricing strategies. One, pricing it to the data. Two, pricing it slightly under. Or three, it's pricing it over. So with that being said, some houses that I see that are in the price points or a little bit lower, I know that it's listed at 175, but it may appraise for a little bit more. If you're concerned about appraisal, negotiate, or not renegotiate, rather connect with a local real estate appraiser who will aid you in providing you, an appraisal, maybe at a discount. Maybe they can, quickly run the numbers. I have an appraiser who I say, hey, listen, we're putting in this offer. What do you think our likelihood of bringing cash to closing would be? And, he would give me guidance on that, even though it's not going to be concrete. And I tell my clients, like, hey, listen, this is just advice. It's not that this is going to be factual as we move forward in the transaction, but I'm looking for those guides to bulletproof, additionally, again, too, if they're concerned about some, inspections or repairs, let's talk about meeting with contractors. Let's talk about, doing these things as we go. Just innovative ways to bulletproof the transaction is just what I wanted to add.
Thank you. Awesome. So,
well, I was just going to say, to Andrew's point, it's difficult right now with those terms because of how competitive it is, but we are still seeing some of them going through. Yeah. And to Stefanie's point is calling the agent when you're making the offer. To me, when you're dealing with a buyer, especially in that situation, is you need to be getting on the phone with the listing agent and you need to be doing what we do. You need to sell. And you need to sell the listing agent on why they think maybe the terms aren't the strongest, but how you and your team can bring this home. And with the mortgage rep you're working with, have Pinky call and give that listing agent reassurance that you guys know what you're doing and you're going to get it to the closing table. Because like Stefanie says, the money's the same to the seller, but it's just taking all the objections and any roadblocks that you're not going to get to home plate, like Andrew's baseball analogy. So if you're a buyer in that tough type of thing, is you need to be on the phone selling that offer to the agent.
That's really awesome, Carl. I like the way you just put it. Do what you do best, right? Sell. That's really awesome. I like that. So that kind of leads into another good question too, is what's the importance of a buyer's team in all of this, right? So you talked about selling that. So how important is it? Because I've heard some different folks say different things. Well, my buyer came in with Quicken Mortgage. I'm going to pick on them for a second, right? They've been in the news a lot right now. So my buyer came in with that. I really don't want him to work with them, but I've heard from many of you that, hey, you got to pre-approve these people because they came in with Quicken and there's no way my offer is getting accepted with Quicken, right? So tell me, and sorry to the folks at Quicken, but not sorry, I should say. But tell me, how important is your buyer's team to you in helping get your offers accepted? And Carl, just as you said, especially in those clients who maybe don't have the strongest terms and conditions that they can go in with, and how do you help convey that to your clients so that they understand how important it is for them to work with the folks that you are recommending that they work with? Go for it, Andrew. I see you're ready.
Well, reputation is everything, right? So to have the ability when you're weeding through, when you have one or two or three offers, and then in pecking order, you could say, well, like we said, I worked with this agent in the past, they get things done. I know the lender. I've already approached he or she, and very informative upon giving me all the information about debt ratios, qualifying them on the taxes of the home, the association, giving a good sense that this is going to move forward is what the seller really is looking to do. Because they're, as I said before, they're paying the commission to you because of your reputation, your knowledge, and your expertise advice at that position. So yes, having a good team, knowing who the attorney is going to be using on the buyer's side, the relationship you work with them, knowing that they're going to be using it XYZ, home inspectors, it's all part of it, right, to get to the finish line. Hopefully uneventful as possible.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I agree with Andrew. Actually, we're implementing better tracking on with our team, and that's a really good way to analyze your business. Why I'm bringing that up is because it was Monday night, and I sat down and I said I wanted to go over the ratio of houses that we closed versus houses that got canceled. And then from the ones that got canceled, I wanted to analyze, well, what happened with them? And I will tell you that 75% of them were terminated because of the team whom was working for them. And I can tell you right now as well is I just had an attorney today cancel a deal because she told the buyer, I just don't like this house. You need to cancel. And there's no background story. There's nothing. I don't like this house. You just need to cancel. And I'm like, the attorney never answered my phone calls. She said that she sent the attorney review letter. She never did. Then the lender whom he was working with, and then afterwards I, told him we need to look at other opportunities, actually was having him commit mortgage fraud to buy this house and told me some BS too. So this one buyer that I'm working with right now had a lender to get him to commit mortgage fraud, had an attorney who just said, I just feel like you canceling this. Again, she didn't know anything was going on with I just don't like the house. Just cancel. I don't want to deal with it. And I think because I was annoying and the other agent was annoying too, trying to get a response. And from all the other transactions, it has come from another member of somebody who's not a part of our team. And mind you, is if I have a client who has an attorney who they love, a lender who they love, I am all for building relationships with them. I'm all for it. You don't have to work with people who I love and people who I work with, but I want to know them and get to meet them. And if I feel like that they're not going to be a best suit in your team, I will say maybe let's look at other recommendations. But again, as I mentioned, 75% of the deals that we had that were canceled over the past year were because of some other member of the buyer's team who was not at our recommendation doing something that really messed up the transaction. And in some cases, in my opinion, ruined reputations that I had with other agents because of their actions. That was not a part of anything. So the team is probably the most important. Coming in time of, if I, as a listing agent, I would love to know that. If I know that that buyer and that agent is saying, listen, I have a dedicated team whom I work with. I work with this attorney all the time. I work with this lender all the time. I work with this title company all the time. Here's all the positives. If we have a problem, I know a point of contact where I can get this problem resolved. Those are the things that I want to hear. So again, your team is probably going to be within that top 3 of the most important facets for you working with any client to get from that contract to close.
Thank you, Stefanie. Yeah, Carl, chime in. And if you could, Carl, add to it how you convey that to the clients as well, right? Because we're talking about this part of it, we just spoke, Andrew and Stefanie spoke very much so about how important it is to have that team. So jump on and also say, how do you help your clients understand that and make sure that they see that value?
Right. Well, one, if you don't know the team you're working with, how confident are you going to be calling the listing agent selling the team? Because you don't want to ruin your reputation for some mortgage rep or some attorney that you have no clue how they perform, and you don't want that to be a reflection on you. So if you're working with your team on the transaction, you're going to be a lot more confident selling that offer to the listing agent because you have the proven track record. And really with buyers, setting that expectations, you kind of got to tell the stories. You got to share what other experiences you've had with other clients and how it went and what the ripple effect. Listen, everybody on this call wakes up every day thinking about real estate, buying, seller, but our clients don't. So you got to tell them, so they hear Quicken on the radio and they think, oh, great, I'm going to go to Quicken and I'll get a Rocket Mortgage. This will be super easy. But it's our job to educate, hey, listen, buyer, this is an experience I had and the ripple effect from that experience. I'm not saying you shouldn't use them because we can't, I'm not saying you shouldn't use them, but why don't you just have an introductory call with someone I work with hand in hand that my clients rave about, that will give you that personal service. And what's the worst that happens at the end of the day? Maybe they beat your rate or you connect with this person better. So I think if you go in there and just badger them and say, oh, no, that attorney sucks or this sucks, it's going to make you look bad in the eye of the clients. But tell them a story. Marketing to me, and I just did a video on this, marketing is really just being a good storyteller. So you explain the story, say, hey, just give them a call and opportunity. And if you want to stick with your company, that's fine. but let's just do this because I think it could benefit you, right? Because if you sell it at how it's benefiting you as the agent, the consumer is going to be like, wait, no, I don't want anything to do with this. And what I mean by benefiting is giving you the service and your team around you, but you have to be able to tell the story of why it's going to benefit them to get to closing.
That's it. Okay. And that's it. I think you summed it up, but what is the benefit to them, right? That's great. And Carrie, we'll talk about that. I see Carrie saying she can help with that story selling part. So got another seminar coming up, guys. Okay, awesome. So we're almost with 10:45 already. Time is flying. So we've just got a little bit more time, I guess. So let's wrap up with one last question each, right? And I'm going to try and get 2 in 1, okay? So tell me what you think about the direction the market's headed right now and how long this stays, and keeping in mind that the rates have gone up a little bit, right? The interest rates, what that impact is, and what your last piece of advice, like if everyone walks away with one thing here, what is that one thing that you think they should be doing immediately as a result of this? And so, let's keep everyone to like two minutes each. So who wants to go first? Go for it, Andrew. You're unmuted already.
I'll go first. Let me just get it. So as far as the climate of our housing market, right? It seems like we're going to be seeing rates hold where they are right now, leading into next year, whether they go up 1/4 or even 0.5%. I don't think it's going to slow the momentum down at that point. So it's going to still be a very competitive marketplace. As we said before, hopefully as we get into the latter spring and summertime with vaccinations, we'll see more product coming on the market, which would maybe even things a little bit more at that point, but still painful in that response. And as far as, just to let everybody know, while I know it's strange to say, but, while you're out and about and losing things, you're also gaining, right? You're gaining knowledge of a market that sometimes you can't just get on a computer screen, and you're getting hands-on and you're learning and you're educating and it's building dialogue with the people that you're working with. This business is a long-term business, right? As we all said, and in every marketplace, believe me, and we've gone through a lot of markets, those that have been doing it for a long period of time, it's challenging, but it's rewarding, right? If you're in it for the long term, you're gonna come out in a good manner at that point. So that's basically the best advice I could tell you. It's just the way this market is, and you're either gonna like black licorice or you don't like black licorice. If you're passionate upon what you're doing, you're gonna love it and you're gonna enjoy it, and it doesn't really become work. There's frustrations and everything, but overall the satisfactions lead, and you're helping people, and you're also helping yourself and your family. So stick with it.
Love it. Thank you, Andrew. Great words. Steph, want to go?
So with the takeaway for all of this is that while I agree with Andrew, we're going to continue to be in a volatile market with many things that are going to change. Number one is just education. Continuously educate yourself, and alongside that, continuously educate your clients. Set expectations. Set expectations for your clients. Set out, like I said, the roadmap and the analysis, like sitting down and actually with a pen and paper and writing what your client is looking for, what you can do for them. Take the strategies that you've learned today or from other resources, or talking more with, other realtors or with Pinky as well from what she's seeing on her end, and just create a plan for what you can do and showcase that to your client. And you want to always reassure your client that you're doing you're making the best possible effort on their behalf. And that's really the best thing that you can do, and the biggest takeaway that I would suggest from what we went over today.
Wonderful. Thank you, Stefanie.
I think the market's going to stay busy. We're not going to see distressed properties for years, because distressed properties were at all-time lows before the pandemic hit. So even with forbearances and everything going on and the process it takes to foreclose on a property in New Jersey, distressed properties are not going to play a factor for at least 12 to 24 months. So I think we're going to see the market stay busy. I think it might pull back to a little bit more normalcy where not everything's $40,000 over list price. But with that being said, as I know agents also, because the minute it pulls back a little bit, everyone's like, oh no, what's going on? What's going on? It's either too busy or too slow. It's never that happy medium. So, you know, just embrace the market. And what I want to say is this, is we do a ton of trainings as an office. I love doing things like this. But to me, training, and the number one thing you can take out of this is you've heard a lot of great ideas. You've heard a lot of different suggestions, a lot of different ways to implement business. Choose one thing and keep yourself accountable on that one goal. Training to me becomes one of the most overrated words in this industry, because the difference in your business is not the training, but it's the micro commitments and accountability you take to put things into action that will change your business. So get an accountability partner, check in with them, drop the big why and just focus on those micro commitments of daily actions, because that's what's going to change your business and grow it.
Wonderful. Drop mic, guys. You guys did amazing, amazing. And can't thank you, Andrew, Stefanie, Carl, for being so open. You know, you guys shared your secrets, if you will, right? You guys, this is, again, abundance mindset. They know that there's plenty out there for everybody, are willing to share what works for them. And so I appreciate you guys. And I know time is our most precious, precious commodity. So thank you for sharing with us. Thank you for all of you who took the time to be on with this morning. And you know, it's really our mission and hope that you have been able to walk away with something that is going to help you live a better life, be able to serve your clients better, bring more for your family, and enjoy what you do every day. And I think, as everyone said, stay the course, you guys. I know it's a little bit tough out there, but hopefully the nuggets that you got today help give you some inspiration and motivation that and tools to be able to really succeed in this marketplace right now. So thank you. And with that, if you guys, by the way, email me if you are not already on our list. We will share with you about future classes. Our next one, as I said, we have a CE class coming in with the home inspector, Carlo Vitale. If you guys know him, it's a CE course. So that's going to be on, I think it's April 14th, second Wednesday. But if you're not on our mailing list already, my email address is team@pinkymortgage.com. So thank you for your time, everybody. Go enjoy the beautiful sunshine today as well. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pinky.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you, Eva.
Thank you, Pinky.
Thanks, Pinky.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
panelists.
Aw,
This was great, Pinky. Thanks so much. Lots of great information.
Yes. Thank you for
Very
your active
good.
comments too.
Oh, and Pinky, definitely we'll talk about that, because I just wrote a course and just did a course for some attorneys on building stories and metaphors to connect with clients.
Oh my gosh.
So
Perfect.
well, I already have it written, so I'd be happy to share it with you guys. Let me know.
Yeah, we'll set it up. I'll give you a ring, Carrie. Thank you.
Absolutely. Have a great day. Take
You
care.
too.
Thanks
Thank
again.
you. Hey, goodbye, everybody. I'm going to sign off here. It's good to see everyone.